In 1974, the whole town of Ossett was shocked when one of their beloved, well-known locals became a cold-blooded killer. Ossett is a modest market town near the city of Wakefield in West Yorkshire, England. The pleasant industrial town is home to a few notable people, including soap opera star Helen Worth and Eli Marsden Wilson, who had 17 pictures exhibited at the Royal Academy of Arts in Burlington House, as well as several others ranging from actors to musicians and authors to footballers, all who had successful careers in their respective fields. The town has 7 churches, each with its own particular identity and initiatives. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Ossett was the center of Nonconformism. Although nonconformist churches were common all over West Riding, Ossett was a particular hotbed. In the 1970s, the population of the town sat around 17,000. It seemed like the least likely place for a gruesome murder to occur, or a place from which tales of satanic ritual worship and demonic possessions could stem, because Ossett had some of the lowest crime rates in this part of Yorkshire until 1974, when a 31-year-old Michael Taylor was overtaken by inner demons that led him to the gruesome murder of his wife and a poodle. What happened to Michael Taylor that pushed him into visiting a local Christian fellowship group in Gauber? Was Michael Taylor convicted of his crimes? We'll unravel everything here. But before we do, please kindly subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more in-depth true crime sagas. Before we get started, please also be warned that this video will contain gruesome details of violence and death. With that, let's get started. Michael Taylor was born on September 21st, 1944, in Ossett, West Yorkshire, England. He married 29-year-old Christine Taylor, and the couple had 5 children, all boys aged between 6 and 12. Michael's close friends described him as a mild-mannered, generally kind, and caring father. The family had led an ordinary life so far. While Michael was not excessively wealthy, he had enough to cater to his children and maybe a little for generosity until early 1974, when everything turned sour. First, Michael suffered extreme pain in his spine, ranging from mild to disabling, which caused him long-term unemployment, coupled with the country's devastating economy that drastically lessened job opportunities for even the most qualified. Job opportunities continued to dry up as the recession bit harder and harder. As a result, Michael's family constantly switched from happy to sad until they hit their lowest point. The usually cheerful and happy Michael spiraled into depression and withdrew from interacting with family and friends. Like the saying, a happy family is but an earlier heaven, Michael's friend named Barbara Wardman had assumed his depression was caused by spiritual forces and convinced him that they should visit a local Christian fellowship group located in Gauber to attend weekly prayer meetings to help alleviate his mental torment, cultivate a Christ-centered home, and to build a foundation of joy that would sustain them through all of life's ups and downs. Unfortunately, Michael's family was not devout despite being surrounded by multiple churches. But since Michael was in a state of decline, he would welcome any means to return to his glory days. The Christian fellowship group was led by a beautiful woman named Marie Robinson. Her enchanting and charismatic form of old-time teachings seemed to appeal to Michael. He became an active congregation member who favored spending an exorbitant amount of time with the leader rather than the group's programs. As a devoted member of the Christian fellowship group and someone who was already under a love spell, Michael joined Robinson in congregations where they would use the power of God to exorcise people of their sins and speak in tongues. They also began engaging in private rituals where they would make the sign of the cross over and over for up to 8 hours to cast and bind what they believed was the evil power of the full moon. This made the onlookers and the congregation feel that Michael had the hots for Marie Robinson. Unsurprisingly, Michael started to withdraw from his duties at home. When he wasn't around Marie, he became withdrawn, slipping into a deep depression. He had become sullen and argumentative and would lash out at his wife for the slightest mistake. "This can't be my Michael," Christy would question inwardly. She knew her husband to be mild-mannered and generally kind, so where was this total character change coming from? This made Christy assume that the group leader wasn't helping Michael to restore his balance, but rather exerting a negative influence on him that would further tear their family apart. During the next prayer meeting, Christy openly confronted Michael concerning his sudden attitude change since he had started his private rituals with Marie. Michael, who was reported to have felt an influence cast a shadow over him, vented a sudden fury on surprisingly not Christine, but Marie Robinson. He lashed out at her in what was described as a sinister transformation. He struck Marie Robinson and screamed to the point that the congregation, who couldn't stand to watch the aggressive display, marched forward and restrained him. Later, Marie would have this to say: "I suddenly glanced at Mike and his whole features had changed. He looked almost bestial. He kept looking at me, and his eyes showed a really wild look. I started screaming at him out of fear. I started speaking in tongues. Mike also screamed at me in tongues. I was on the verge of death, and I seemed to come to my senses. I knew that only the name of Jesus would save me, and I just started saying over and over again, 'Jesus.' When Christine heard me calling on the name of Jesus, she started saying it too, and I believe firmly that it was only by calling on his name that I was not killed." During the next meeting, Michael had no idea what had transpired between him and Marie Robinson. Despite receiving full absolution from the group's leader, Michael continued to experience a total breakdown, and his erratic behavior in the following days increased. This made the local vicar summon a group of ministers who declared that an exorcism was in order. On October 5th and 6th, 1974, Father Peter Vincent, aided by Reverend Raymond Smith, including the prayer group, restrained Michael and subjected him to a battery of attempts to cast the demons out of him, soaking him with holy water, burning his crucifix cross, and screaming at him until the next morning at the St. Thomas's Church. Strangely, the completely exhausted priests told Michael to go home and prepare for part 2 of the exorcism so that they could cast the 3 remaining demons, those of insanity, anger, and murder. Margaret Smith, a member of the group who was present during the ritual, told the priests to restrict Michael from going home. She claimed to have received a warning from God that the demon of murder was going to escape from Michael and kill Christine. But the 2 priests dismissed her warnings, urging Michael to go home and rest. At around 9:45 the next morning, police patrolling the normally quiet streets of Ossett came upon a gruesome sight. An officer named PC Ian Walker stumbled upon a man roaming the streets, completely naked, covered in blood, and ranting and screaming, "It is the blood of Satan." They called a local hospital, and Michael was taken away in an ambulance. The police went to Michael's home upon the address that they got from onlookers. Upon their arrival, they found Christy's body lying mutilated. Michael had torn her face apart from her skull. Her tongue was ripped from her mouth, her eyes gouged out, chunks of flesh and blood covered the walls, while the dog was also strangled and ripped apart. "You don't want to see this one, son. I've seen nothing like it before, and I've seen a few. It's the wife. She's got no..." He's ripped at her, son. "It's a right mess in there. There's not much of her left. You don't want to see it, eh?" An inspector who bent over and was vomiting said to PC Ian Walker. Michael later claimed he could remember nothing about the extreme cruelty. When asked by D.I. Smith how he felt, Michael replied, "Released. I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed." Michael was charged with the murder of Christy and waited his trial in Broadmoor Secure Hospital in Berkshire. In 1975, Michael faced trial, and the jury found him not guilty by reason of insanity. Michael's defense was that the Christian Fellowship Prayer Group was a fanatic cult that used full mind control and indoctrination to sway him. He described the group as neurotics feeding neurosis to a neurotic. Deemed to be both clinically and legally insane, Michael was sent back to Broadmoor Secure Hospital, where he spent 4 years before being released back into society, apparently cured. However, in July 2005, Michael was again arrested for sexually abusing an underage girl. The mental illness that existed in 1975 manifested itself again during incarceration. Upon being bailed out, however, they had disappeared. Eventually, Michael received a sentence of 3 years of community service, but with a condition of psychiatric treatment. Do you think Michael was truly possessed, or just a smart man bringing on insanity at the most opportune time in his life? Kindly share your opinion in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.